So, have you guys seen the 2013 or 2013 keynote at RubyConf? So this is a picture of 6th grader Katie with some Japanese guy. And she gave a keynote, I think on the second day of RubyConf in the US. So we tried to invite Katie, but she's not available. So we have a second, well, we have a replacement. So our next speaker, Katie's dad.
Hi, I'm Katie's dad. There we go. Alright, so in actuality, my name is PJ. I am Katie's dad. That's not my profession, though. I'm going to talk about urban legends and we'll get into that. First, I work at Engineer. We're one of the sponsors here. We are an access management platform. We do all this great stuff. You should check it out. You all have like a 500-hour free card, and if you didn't find that, the URL is at the bottom there. That's about all I'm going to say about Engineer. They're really cool. I enjoy it. Our entire Filipino support team is here. Actually, guys, raise your hand.
It's here?
Yeah.
What?
No, the entire. No, Ed's not here.
It's not support?
Ed's not support. Here, company moved on after you. Okay? So a little about me. I was a developer for years. I then joined Engineer as a support person. But there's a lot more to me than just being, a developer, a support person, someone who works in tech. I travel the world talking. That's a great picture of me in the Krigor in Brazil when I didn't have a bag, just like Hero, and I wore the same clothes for about 72 hours. I'm a hockey coach. I played drums since I was about 6 years old, so I still participate in bands, and I let my children keynote large-scale conferences in the US. I live in Buffalo, New York, which looks about like this. This is my backyard. If you see kind of the middle point of that fence there, that's about a meter, and the snow is almost to it. This was just a couple weeks ago. My yard looked like this. I would show a picture of what it looks like now that spring is starting to spring, but basically I have a dog, so everything just looks like it melted and there's a bunch of dog shit all over my yard. I also do Ruby karaoke, which is a lot of fun. We're going to do it tonight. This is a picture from when we did a random Ruby karaoke event last year. And you can see that's me, Zizek, who's also here, and Nick Sutter, who couldn't be with us today because he's busy being a different kind of rock star. But enough about me. What does this talk about? So there's a few concepts that we have, and there's lots of stereotypes and misconceptions that we have about the languages we use or have used in the past, the way that different code communities look at other code communities from the outside, concepts that differ about the perception of open source versus the enterprise, and we're going to kind of touch on all of that. Now the title is Urban Legends. Just to clarify, these are not the urban legends I'll be talking about. That's a whole other cryptozoological thing that I know a little bit about, but not enough. Maybe for a lightning talk. So let's start with Ruby, because this is RubyConf Philippines. How many of you do or are learning to do Ruby? And that's awesome. And we love Ruby, and Ruby is great. Like, this is where we live. This is, what we do. But there's a lot of people who are on the outside that don't do Ruby that think we're basically a bunch of fucking hipsters that make shitty apps. And why do they think that? Why do they think that what we're developing isn't just as important as someone else's development? Because Rails. Rails, for, again, people from the outside, gives people the impression that this is so easy. It's automagical. When I first started doing Rails, they said automagical a lot. And it got to the point where I was like, this is the most bullshit word ever. Like, it's not automatic, it's scaffold shit, so what? Like, I could do that HTML in 5 minutes. That's not really super special. But people seem to believe that because it does a little bit of stuff for you. Rails is like the easiest thing in the world, and you can kick out an app that does amazing things in 10 minutes. So one of the key things is that Ruby doesn't equal Rails. As a matter of fact, I freely admit that I have not built an actual Rails app in about 2 years now. The tools that I built for for engine yard and our teams and stuff like that, they're not going to have a lot of endpoints. They don't need a lot of interaction. So I'll use something like Cuba or Sinatra if I need to get it up on the web. I don't need Rails. It has so much overhead. But why does everyone kind of do this? Because they think that like Rails is so loud, and it has its severely loud, benevolent dictator leader in DHH, who every time he says something, everybody's like, well, all Rubyists must believe this too, because the Rails guy said it. And it's not true. So we need to kind of divorce ourselves from that stereotype. And we kind of need to get away from this, and it's tough. I'll give you a minute to look at this comment. So basically, the idea, I got this from a blog post a little while back. And the idea is that the guy who oddly, if you guys know who Charlie Nutter is, who does JRuby, read the guy talking about his Soma single source espresso app. It kind of looks like Charlie. But, and the other guy is a Java developer. And that's how he looks at the guy who developed his app in Ruby or RubyMotion, whatever it is, it's an iOS app. Doesn't matter, the idea, oh, open source, now I'm enterprise, this guy doesn't do anything important. And that's just not true. There's a lot of cool things that people are using Ruby for. There's a lot of amazing companies that are based in Ruby, or have a Ruby backend, or have some sort of Ruby functionality built into them, whether they're Rails apps or not, or they've moved on from that or not. These people still did amazing things using Ruby. And we should keep that in mind. We're Ruby strong, we should be proud of it. So, you know, obviously these are basically web apps. So let's talk about the other big deal in web. PHP. Before we talk about PHP, let's just set a few things aside. I personally do not have anything against people who do PHP. They're developers just like we are. They're solving problems just like we are. They're using a different tool set, and that's okay. But people say shit like this a lot. PHP is dead. PHP doesn't do anything. PHP has been gone for such a long time. PHP is on something along the lines of 80% of all of the servers in the world. Let that sink in. All the servers in the world, 80% of them are running PHP in some way. I'm pretty sure that's an amazing ratio. 70% of the largest websites in the world also run PHP. I mean, think about it. Facebook is PHP. It's super hacked and pasted together PHP by the people who work at Facebook, but that's a whole other issue. I'm not going to get into that. But obviously, PHP is not dead. PHP is not object-oriented. If you did PHP a long time ago, how many people have done PHP? You don't have to be ashamed. Put your hands up. So if you've done PHP, you know, but you haven't done it, say, in the last 5, 6, 10 years, it wasn't object-oriented. I mean, it did originally stand for personal homepage. It's come a long way since then. So if you use anything before PHP version 5.0, yes, it was not an object-oriented language. However, 5.0 came out a long-ass time ago. So maybe it's not such a bad idea to revisit and see if there's ideas you can borrow from there. PHP can't do hardware. This, well, a stereotype, and especially tough for people in the Ruby community because we see things like R2, Argus, all the great things that you can, you know, develop for drones and Spiros and little jumping bots and Raspberry Pis and shit like that. Like, we have a great retinue of things that we can do. And everybody's like, well, PHP can't do that. It just builds web apps. Yeah, so does Rails. They're trying to get into a way to actually interface with these things. They want to go mobile. They want to have an Internet of Things aspect to PHP. And it's baby steps. I mean, we didn't get there right away, obviously. PHP is insecure. So there's a perception that applications created with PHP totally lack security. And to be honest, PHP is just as secure as the developer makes it. There's no language you're ever going to use anywhere in the world that is 100% secure and you can't get hacked. Just ask anyone from GitHub who's here today. Like, seriously, guys. GitHub, super secure application, super secure. Like, one of my most trusted things of all time. And they got hit just like everybody else. It happened yesterday, and that happens. It happens to everybody. There's no such thing as 100% across-the-board security. I mean, if you're on the RubyConf PH Slack right now, you might want to change your password, because they got hit yesterday, too. There's no way to guarantee security. And PHP, any PHP app is just as secure as the developer wants to make it. Let's talk about Java. Java is another language a lot of people say, oh, Java's dead. Nobody does Java. But yet, it also powers the biggest apps available in the world today. Remember that image of the guy on the airplane talking about the Somo coffee shit? I don't drink coffee, so I don't really care about that. The guy who was kind of ridiculing him, he wrote in Java. The blog post was about the increasing Java in the enterprise kind of thing. And you could kind of use both sides of the argument. Java runs giant things that keep things running. Java runs a majority of the things in big business. It keeps those things functioning, it keeps those tools running. And that doesn't matter if it's like airplanes, manufacturing robots, Java is there. You know, because that annoying pop-up comes up on every computer you've ever owned. But how many people here have actually tried to learn Java? Not JavaScript, but Java. It is hard, it is difficult. But that doesn't mean that no one wants to use it or it's dead or it's not going to be around anymore. Java's not really going anywhere. So let's look at Python. Python's a pretty cool language, but it's just for like, mathematicians, scientists, and academics, right? Like you can't do anything with Python. This is an image that Python had from the beginning because, things like SciPy very much put that at the forefront. This is an academic language. It's not going to be used for startups, or it's not going to be used for web application production, or working with hardware, or anything like that. And that's, again, it's not true, but there's this perception out there. And what we really need to work to do is put aside these perceptions. We can't think of any particular language as not being able to do what we want it to do just because it's convenient for us to discard it. We need to keep it in mind and bring the tools that they're using into our revenue so that we can be more focused on making the thing that we use the most better. So Linux, not a language. But people have the perception that it's for neckbeards, basement dwellers, people who live with their parents at the age of 40. And yeah, like the Linux community does not do a lot to fight that impression. Their hero is Richard Stallman, not RMS, not our RMS, the other RMS. And it's sad to have the perception because Linux is really powerful. And this is something that occurred to me on a plane a while back. I travel a lot, and I travel far, so I often get the lovely opportunity to watch really outdated movies on the plane. And whenever something goes wrong, as it almost always does, they're like, "We're sorry, everyone. Please sit up in your seats. We will be rebooting the entertainment system." And every time they say that, the first thing you see is this goddamn penguin. So now your plane is running Java and Linux to run their whole entertainment system. There's only one plane I've ever been on where the Windows thing came up. I'm not going to talk about that yet. Perl. Remember Perl? So I wrote a blog post a little while back because I was in France last year and there was this big panel about is Ruby dead? So I felt I needed to counter that because I didn't have the time during that panel to say anything. And say, hey, Ruby's not dead, Ruby's mature. And we should respect maturity and not just assume that maturity means that it's not the hot new thing anymore. For some reason, somebody picked that up and said, is Perl dead? Which had nothing to do with what I was talking about, but they then linked to my article and it was weird. So I was like, yeah, Perl's just as dead as Ruby. People use Perl a lot. Perl's very popular. I was just at a conference where they announced Perl 6 or 7 or whatever one we've been waiting for 10 years is going to come out soon. But it's an active community, it's an active language, it's not dead. I wish we'd stop saying things are dead, it's kind of depressing. Except for TBD, fuck that shit. Sorry, Alan. So Swift. Swift is the best thing ever, I'm done. Thanks, have a good night. So yeah, the reason why I say that is because when Swift came out, so many Rubyists started tweeting shit like this. And it's like, oh, the new hotness, Swift, this is what we're going to develop in. Let me give you my money. And my first thought is like, that's really messed up. Like, why would you just assume someone came up with something so it must be the best? And then I thought, okay, let's really look at this picture. So, elderly people, pregnant people, and Objective-C developers are obsolete. Like, okay, I get the poke at the Objective-C developers. It's supposed to be funny, it's tongue-in-cheek, whatever. Pregnant people are obsolete, don't we? We kind of need pregnant people. They're kind of important for the continuation of the species. But yeah, it's this kind of attitude like, oh, the new thing, the new thing, the new thing. Just because something ends with a JS doesn't mean it's the best thing in the world. There are really useful things that have a JS at the end of it. Node.js, React, Angular's available. But fucking Bacon.js, are you kidding me? Do you know what this does? Almost nothing. It does almost nothing. It's kind of ridiculous, but for a while there, for like the last couple of years, it's like people were like, holy shit, this says JS, I need to use this. It says Kraken, which is like an octopus, but I don't really know what that is, but I'm gonna add it to my app. I mean, it reminded me very much of, kind of the beginning when Rails was coming up and people were making a lot of gems, and a lot of these gems did nothing. And people would be like, holy shit, I need to add this. I need to add sleeper to my app so that it'll remind me that I need to go to sleep sometimes. Like, what the fuck do you need that for? Sorry, I swear a lot. But yeah, it's like, it's not about being cool because you're doing the new thing. It's not because, oh, I was a Rubyist for 6 or 7 years, but now I do Go. Because Go is the best thing in the world. I've been to so many conferences with Go for Rubyist talks. I'm still not doing Go. I like Ruby. I'm happy with it. If I need to build a quick website and it's static, I'll literally write it in HTML because that's the right tool for the job. That's what it's about. It's not about what's hip and cool. It's about what really needs to get the job done. So those are our stereotypes. They don't seem to be going anywhere, but we can fix that as a community. So let's talk about communities. How many of you participate in your local Ruby group? Chris already told me, so I know, but raise your hands anyway. Yeah. And that's your local Ruby group. How many of you go to your local PHP group? Python? Java? JavaScript? UX? Startup? CEO? I saw you, you're good. So yeah, it's great. And I think this image, I picked this specifically because it really illustrates, like, everyone's a different color, and let's just pretend that each color represents a programming language, doesn't matter which one. Red is Ruby. And it looks like, wow, great. It looks like technically kind of those lines might indicate that everybody's interacting, but what those lines indicate that everyone is in the same industry, doing different things on an island by themselves. There's very little interaction. And I'll give you kind of a quick example. I organized my Ruby group, the Western New York Ruby group, and we decided one day, after I'd maybe had a couple of drinks, that maybe it was time to bring other people into the group. So we decided we'd have a joint PHP Ruby meetup. For those of you that were at RubyConf Philippines last year, I talked about this, and it went really well, and there was a sharing of ideas. And out of that grew OpenHack, and now OpenHack is something that happens in 40 different countries around the world. And it's all based on the idea that it's not about your tool set. It's not about whether you're using a hammer or a screwdriver. It's about whether you're solving problems. So we try to cross-pollinate. We try to give people ideas. We try to be open-minded, and that's really the key. We can't sit around and continually think that our thing is the best because it's the thing that we use. We have to get ideas from other people in other places. And unfortunately, in tech, we're very closed-minded. I mean, I'm not talking about specifically the diversity issue, but the diversity of tech issue. How many people are polyglot and practicing polyglot practices and not just doing one thing? It leads to people to say shit like this. These are things I've literally heard at different meetups and conferences I've been to. And I'll read them because they're depressing. Designers aren't developers. They shouldn't be at hardcore tech meetups. This happened at a database meetup. A designer wanted to know a little bit more about databases. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just because you're a designer, you don't do code? I mean, let me tell you something. I can write a Ruby app, I can build a Sinatra API pull, I can do all these good things, but it looks like shit. Because I'm not a designer. I can't code CSS very well. I don't have a grip on colors. I'm wearing primary colors. My wife picks out my clothes. She literally packages them in my luggage so I know what I'm supposed to wear at the same time. Sysadmins can live without developers. What do we need them for? This is actually said by a very good friend of mine, and we worked together, and I said to him, that's interesting, so let's say we just eradicate all the developers all over the world. All the developers are gone. What the fuck do I need sysadmins for? You have to have something to serve. Without an application, a sysadmin is just as useless. He was like, yeah. Business folks just don't get developers. Maybe I've been lucky, but a lot of the business people I've worked with, even when they didn't come from a development background, they had enough interaction with developers, they understand that there's a different focus. Danish brought up an excellent point yesterday. Everyone is in sales. So even if you're a developer, you are in some way in sales. Whether you're selling yourself or your ideas or your creativity to the rest of the team, you're selling something. Tech people are socially inept. All of them. I'm at a conference with 100 people that most of whom I don't know. I'd like to know you all. We'll work on that later at karaoke. But obviously, we're not socially inept. All of us got up today, got dressed, luckily in t-shirts and shorts because it's 1,000,000 degrees here, and said, I'm going to go and I'm going to hang out with these people and we're going to talk about things. And maybe you didn't intentionally go out and say, I'm going to meet new people, but there is going to be social interaction. No one came here to sit by themselves. If you did, I'm sorry, but we'll talk later, we'll hang out. So let's work on having a tech community. Let's do away with the stereotypes and all the bullshit and have a tech community. That's really what we need. That's what we want. So think of it as a greater community, not a Ruby community, not a PHP community, a tech community. So let's take care of that one other thing that we have to worry about. The difference between open source and enterprise. So we work in open source, so we think that we're awesome. And enterprise people live in cubicles and only care about money and shit. They think that we're scumbags who make Soma coffee apps, who don't really give a crap, but we want fast money, we want venture capital, and we want it now. Or we want to contract and not worry about having a real job, because contracting is not a real job. Thanks, enterprise guys. Both of these people have a valid point. What that espresso guy, the Soma's espresso guy is doing, is helpful for the people in his local community. What the Java guy is doing something that helps a much larger community. But nonetheless, people are happy. But the enterprise dev only wants money. He's Mr. Business. I love this image. This is one of my favorite images. I was actually reminded of it on the way here. There's this guy. There's this guy who is sitting next to me in the airport in Detroit talking about plastics. And he was like dead serious. He was like, man, this is the future. We're going to move on this. I'm headed to Seoul, South Korea right now. We're going to bang out 1,000,000 pieces of plastic tubing and sell them. We're going to be millionaires. And I was like, okay. So he was very gruff. He said many sexist things that were disturbing to me. And disturbing to everyone else because he was super fucking loud. But at the same time, I thought to myself, okay, let's take his personality out of him. He's just a startup guy. He's just looking to make a product that people want to use. So there's not really that big of a difference. I mean, maybe if we all get along, maybe there's things that we can learn from those enterprise people. Maybe some of their conformity, some of their conventions, some of their control features are things that we can learn to kind of shape us and mature a little bit in the open source community so it's not just everybody grab all. Maybe we can teach them to relax a little bit. That it doesn't have to be banking apps all the time or building airplanes. Sometimes you can just build fun things to build fun things. And maybe we can find some kind of common ground for the children. I mean, if we don't stop believing, we can make this happen. So what else? There's a few other things. Part of the point of this talk is to kind of point out that there's flaws in logic. We're people, we're human. We tend to inflate our own interests. We tend to think that what we think is definitely more important than what everybody else is thinking. And we need to put that aside and respect people and talk to them, but also listen to them and get ideas from them. And we can do this pretty much throughout our lives, except for during those teenage years where things are awkward and we're really just worried about being disruptive in a completely different way. So smash the pedestal. I love all you guys. You guys are all awesome. Every person in this room is awesome just for showing up today. Chris and I had a little bit of a talk when we were at the party the first night about the fact a lot of people were reluctant to approach speakers and hang out with the speakers. But I'm just a person just like everybody else. This microphone, this clicker, that computer doesn't change that I'm just a guy, that I have a lot of interests and I have funny stories, and maybe tonight we'll create some more funny stories that I'll tell at the next conference that I go to. It's about creating memories and respecting people as people. So there's no such thing as a rock star developer. There's no such thing as a wizard sysadmin. There's no such thing as a ninja. If you were a rock star, you'd be up on stage in front of 3,000 people 300 days out of the year and you'd be getting paid a lot of money. If you were a wizard, you would be in New Zealand making movies or something like that. If you were a ninja, I couldn't see you, so I see a couple empty seats. Maybe those are the ninjas. I don't know. They're apparently on a lot of LinkedIn applications. At the same time, we can all always be amazing. I mean, we can always build. We can build relationships. We can build software. We can make it better. And it doesn't really matter if you're, an open source person, a Ruby person, a man, a woman, an old person, a young person, whatever. Like, let's get more people moving in the right direction. Forget the legends. forget the myths about who you are and what you do. Do the best you can to be cool with every single person around you. Not just in the tech community, but in general. Help new people to get into this tech game. Without all the bullshit surrounding all of it, every one of these legends and stereotypes and perceptions will go away, and things will get better for everyone. Thank you.